Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Movie Crusaders. My name is Sean Waskrug. With me for this special episode is my co-star for the Weekend Crusaders, Brian Michaels. Hey, it's Spider-Man. This movie, there's so much to talk about. First things first, and Brian's already making fun of me for it, and because he always makes fun of me because he's one of those guys that just will not let shit go. I apologize about my non-spoiler review. I was tired from work and all this stuff, and I couldn't say names to save my life. And tried to say the lizard's name, who is
Reese Ifans.
Totally messed me up to the point. I had to edit it where I took like 30 solid seconds out of me trying to say his name, to the point that when I went to Jon Favreau, my brain died. And I was saying I was basically Ben Stiller, and there's something about Mary like Barbara. Yeah, so I know his name's Jon Favreau. I know it. I know. But my brain died. So naturally, Brian is like, dude, this is how you say people's names. Like,
I was just letting you know before we started this. That's all. I wasn't.
I know. But I have been waiting to talk about this all day. Like, I was getting murdered at work with customers and stuff like that. I was like, I just want to get home so we can talk about the spoiler review for Spider-Man No Way Home. This movie, I'm about 24 hours removed now from seeing the film, and it's still been like at the forefront of my mind. And because I haven't really got to talk about it with anybody. Like I've been able to watch people talk about it, but I haven't been able to talk about it to anyone until now. And I, like I said, I know Brian's like rating score, but I don't know his thoughts or feelings on this. So this is me literally going into it for the first time. Obviously, this is your spoiler warning. We are going over everything and anything that we can talk about and think about until we end this episode. We don't know how long we're going to go. We're just going to go until we got nothing more to say, or until Brian has to go to work, whichever comes first. But Spider-Man in general, I mean, we've talked about it on the show numerous times, whether it be on the Weekend Crusaders or whether it be during regular reviews. I have always been a fan of the Spider-Man character, and in terms of the films, I love the Sam Raimi trilogy, minus the third one a little bit. I am not a fan of the third one. I don't actively bash and hate it as much as a lot of people do, but I know it's not a good movie, but it's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. You don't like the Sam Raimi at all. I mean, is that because you don't like the Sam Raimi at all, or is it because you don't like Tobey Maguire?
So at the time they came out, I actually thought they were not bad. I mean, especially number 2, like most people, I think is the best of the 3, and a lot of that is due to Alfred Molina. But I thought they were. I thought they were. They were decent. And then as we got to the other series, I decided I liked those more. But when I've since gone back to revisit the Raimi ones, I realized just how awful an actor Tobey Maguire is, and how even more awful an actress Kirsten Dunst is. I mean, it's painful to watch some of these scenes. Now, they aren't unwatchable movies. They're fine for what they are. Even the third one, a lot of people hate. I don't hate it. It's fine. But, yeah.
I don't think I necessarily hate their performances. It's just that they make MJ, or Kirsten Dunst's MJ, basically, I don't want to say a slut, because it's not like we see her sleep around or anything, but God damn, she's like most unloyal woman in all of this. Like, she's hooks up with everybody.
Well, it's like every movie she has to be with somebody else.
Oh yeah, it's like always Peter Parker has to be worried that she's just gonna move on, whether it's James Franco or was it Jameson's son? I'm blanking on his name off the top of the head. It's just like, or Flash, and it's just like, good God, like, can you just make MJ just MJ? Like, she's like, Peter's always got to worry about her just leaving him for somebody. Now, in terms of the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, I don't think those movies are as bad as everyone makes it out to be. I think everyone just was so in love with the Sam Raimi trilogy, or at least the first 2 Sam Raimis, that they just weren't willing to be open to the new Spider-Man. Now, granted, I've always said this, obviously this is way before Tom Holland, that to me, Tobey Maguire was the better Peter Parker and Andrew Garfield was the better Spider-Man. Because I'm sorry, I can't buy Andrew Garfield as this nerdy like
Yeah, because they went more to the
he's a skateboard
emo. Yeah.
Yeah. But as Spider-Man, I think he did a great job embodying the Spider-Man character. He just didn't really do a good job of Peter Parker. But I think the Amazing Spider-Man films were fine. I don't think they're better than the Sam Raimi ones, but I think they were fine. You actually like the Amazing ones better.
Yeah, see, I was the opposite because I didn't have this love of the first three. I saw this one. I thought this is a giant step up for the series. I enjoyed the Amazing Spider-Man way more than the three Raimi ones, and I actually enjoyed Amazing Spider-Man 2 pretty much this as much as Amazing Spider-Man 1. That's one of those movies where I've never really understood the hate that movie gets, and nobody's still been able to explain it to me because there's nothing in it. I mean, aside from wasting Rhino and things like that. But
my problems with it is it's all the villains. I have nothing against Garfield or Gwen Stacy's or Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy. I think the way they handled that scene, which we'll obviously clearly touch on later in No Way Home, I think all that stuff was done really well. You had Paul Giamatti as Rhino. You fucking wasted him.
Although he was all over the trailers. The final shot of the movie is in the trailer.
Yeah, you wasted him in that. Jamie Foxx's Electro just was basically Jim Carrey's Riddler without.
I have no problem with Jamie Foxx's Electro, but I will say it is basically the exact same character as his Electro and as Catwoman.
Well, and Jim Carrey's Riddler.
What did I say?
You said Catwoman.
I know before that. I meant to say the same as Jim Carrey's.
Oh, Riddler. you said Electro again.
Oh, yeah, he's the same as himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I meant to say Jim Carrey's Riddler.
Yeah.
And that's Catwoman. I think they've done it before too. It's just one of those kind of storylines they've kind of used over and over again. But,
yeah, and then
Dane DeHaan.
Dane DeHaan's.
I didn't mind his character, and I don't mind him becoming the Goblin, but oh my god, his look as the Goblin is the one thing I didn't like about that.
Well, they just kind of abandoned his character. I felt like halfway through the film, and then we're like, oh wait, we forgot, we got to do this character, and it just felt tacked on. It's like you don't just tack on that kind of a character. It didn't feel like they had a rush to try to make Harry like. It's like you had to build the James Franco Tobey Maguire friendship from Spider-Man, which was 3 films, and they rushed it in like 20 minutes to the point where when he became Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, whichever version it was like
Green Goblin 2. Hobgoblin was a whole different thing.
I know, but it was just like, no, this doesn't work. That's the problem with Amazing Spider-Man 2. I still enjoy it. To me, like in terms of the ranking, Spider-Man 3 is below both the first 2 Amazing Spider-Mans and obviously 1 and 2. But that's my problem with the film. It has nothing to do with Garfield. It has nothing to do with Emma Stone. It's literally the villains that are the problem with that. Of course, then you got Into the Spider-Verse, which I don't think you and I have a single issue.
That might still be the best Spider-Man movie ever made. So.
Yeah. The Venoms. We are going to touch on Venom. You and I actively are not fans.
I will just say I did not enjoy the Venoms movie.
You and I actively are not fans of Tom Hardy's Venoms, or
I am not actively a fan of them, but I also did not have the connection and excitement for the character, him or Carnage, that you do. So so while I did not like it, I was not nearly as disappointed as you, just because I didn't go in with high expectations.
That is very, very true. Because I love the Venom and Carnage characters, and I think the Tom Hardy Venom's movies are dog shit. And I really gave Welcome to Carnage a second chance because Andy Serkis was directing and Woody Harrelson and all that, and it still was just an utter disappointment from what I was hoping for. And then, of course, now we go to the MCU, and we got Tom Holland. And to me, Tom Holland has always been the perfect Spider-Man / Peter Parker. Since Civil War through Homecoming, and then Infinity War, Endgame, and now Far From Home and everything, I think Tom Holland has always done an amazing job. The biggest thing that had to win me over was Zendaya's MJ. But I think Tom Holland has always been a great Peter Parker, and then has had to learn, like the Peter Parker in this franchise, to become a better Spider-Man. And I've always since Civil War, I'm like, okay, this is the
from day one. I believe that Tom Holland has been by far the best live action iteration of Spider-Man and the best iteration of Peter Parker.
Yeah, and I loved him in Civil War. I loved Homecoming. Far From Home, I think, started off a little slow. But once
Far From Home, I actually just rewatched lately because I remember I never disliked it. I always enjoyed the movie.
Oh, I was one of my favorite movies of the year. I just felt
but I always it's always kind of one of those you kind of forget about when you're talking about your favorite Marvel movies, and Spider-Man movies and things. And I rewatched it. It's actually a very good movie. It's just in between all these movies, even including Spider-Man movies, where everything is end of the world threatening threats, and this is just a smaller story about him versus one villain, and I really appreciated that. So
yeah, I felt that it's just kind of slow to kind of get going until he personally like starts to develop that friendship with Mysterio. Then the movie is fantastic from then on out. So, and then of course Endgame and Infinity War, you know what happens with there. So going into this one, this has basically been the tale of Spider-Man No Way Home between us. I heard Spider-Man No Way Home, multiverse, all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, yes, hell yeah, this is gonna be great. Brian, no, I'm not a fan of this. Like, I am not.
So Spider-Man, yes, I love Spider-Man movies. Multiverse, God no, because even in comics and things like that, I hate when they start getting in multiverse because it's. I know superheroes in general are not realistic, but they start bringing other versions and things like that and alternate realities. It's like, okay, you're getting weird. And then when you're going to start pulling from other movies that are not, canon in this universe, things like that, it felt like it was completely just fan service. We're going to have cameos from these other ones, from these other universes, things like that. So I hated that about it. And that was the main thing that had me not anticipating this movie much.
Yeah. So for the past year, I think even since our most anticipated episode from very early at the beginning of the year, it's been me going, yes, Spider-Man, No Way Home, yay, to you going, eh.
It was me going,
trailer.
I wouldn't say so much as me going, I want to like it, I hope I like it, but I'm going in, I'm not as excited about it as you. I was kind of like, yeah.
Yeah. So now we have both seen it.
Yes.
And anyone who's watched my non-spoiler review, I apologize. You guys know how I feel about it. Brian.
Yes.
What are your general thoughts before we dive in of Spider-Man No Way Home?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm doing this having seen the movie once. So this is going to be a very free-form discussion because I'm going to be going, oh yeah, I almost forgot about this because I don't have notes.
That's how it always is with us. So we don't have a structure.
So usually I have prepared notes or things or scenes I want to talk about, things like this. And now I've only seen the movie once. So I'm not going to remember half the stuff I want to talk about until Sean brings it up. So, but having said that, I really, really liked this movie. It is probably my favorite movie of the year. Tom Holland, of course.
Hold on. Time out.
Yeah.
You heard what he said, guys. This is the same guy that is his number one movies of the year were going to be In the Heights and West Side Story. This movie jumped them. You have no idea how huge that is for anyone who has had to work with this guy every day for this past year. This is huge. Continue.
Well, I don't want to go into details on cast or anything yet. We'll talk about that.
Well, just general non-spoiler part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I very much enjoyed the movie. I liked the way it used all the characters it brought in. Honestly, none of it felt fan servicey. It felt like it actually worked for the story. I've heard complaints about the pacing. I had no problem with it. I think this was a 2.5-hour movie or something like that. Flew by for me. It got to what I could tell was going to be like the final location, the climactic action scene stuff. And I was thinking, isn't there like an hour or so left of this movie? I'm like, nope, it's almost over. I'm like, holy shit! It's just the time flew by for me watching this.
Movie. Are you good? I don't
for now. We'll talk about more stuff.
Okay. That's the same thing I'm hearing too. Is everyone's like, oh, the first half's clunky and all over the place. No, it's not.
I loved it. I mean, yes, there's not like Spider-Man action and stuff, but who cares?
I love that the first half took its time to weigh the consequences of Far From Home. It didn't rush through that. It didn't go, oh, yeah, no one believes him. No, the world believes Mysterio. The world believes Spider-Man is a villain. And the repercussions of MJ and Ned and Aunt May and Happy, that changed everything in the MCU. That's the one thing I love about the MCU, especially once we're on Civil War. They're not letting the superheroes get away with shit. They're being called out for the stuff that they do. And Spider-Man is Spider-Man. Everyone loves Spider-Man. But Now, granted, he didn't do anything wrong. He's actually being framed, in a sense, for this. And the world has turned on him, effectively, not just as Spider-Man, but as Peter Parker. Mm-hmm. And I love that they let us live in that world. Like, I got angry at the crap, or not the crap, but the people in the world. Like Hannibal Buress' character with the gym teacher. Like, you know what you did? It's like, shut the fuck up. Don't say anything.
Like you, I love the fact they took that time in the beginning of it. And I actually thought this movie felt a lot like this is basically the end game of Spider-Man. The Avengers end game of Spider-Man. Not only in that the big climactic, culmination of everything.
It is the culmination.
But also in the way it handled the first half hour or so, 45 minutes of Endgame were the same thing. It's like, this is what the world's like now. We're not going straight into happiness and comedy. We're not going straight into action. We're going, this is what the people are dealing with now. And so that's how it started on this movie. And like you, I really liked how that was. Now, as far as specific plot points of that, well, I don't know if you want to get in that now or wait till later.
Well, let me finish my train of thought with it before we go too far into it. But why I love this so much is you needed a reason for him to have to go to Doctor Strange. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just, oh, everyone's mad at me, everyone blah, 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 blah. No, this is now out and out affecting everyone. He doesn't care if it's affecting him. Like, he'll deal with it. But it is affecting MJ, it's affecting Ned in terms of their lives and their careers. Like, they can't get into colleges because of this. Aunt May lost her job. They can't live at their own home anymore. Happy's being investigated. Like, it's gotten to a point where the people he loves and cares about are actively in danger and cannot live normal lives anymore because of this. So they had to develop this in order for him to get to this desperation point to go to Doctor Strange. Because, like, in the trailers, I love that the trailers completely made me go a different route than what we thought it was in the trailers. Like, there are different, lines in the trailers. There's different motivations. Like, Wong in the trailer was like, don't you do that, don't meddle, and then leaves. And then you had Doctor Strange going like,
this is fine, and he winks.
Yeah.
When really Doctor Strange says, I'm going to do it, he goes, fine, just leave me out of it.
Exactly. Like, they totally changed that. And I love that the trailer completely veered everyone. It's still the same storyline, but they did it in a way that's like, oh, this is a totally different film than I thought we were going down this road. But, and I wanted to say this in my non-spoiler review, but obviously I was trying so badly to, tiptoe around everything that I didn't want to spoil anything. I love the journey that John Watts and Tom Holland, as an extension, have done with Spider-Man. Homecoming was Spider-Man learning, or Peter learning to adapt to this new world of superheroes and having this tech from Tony and not knowing, because he's a young kid, to how to use it the right way and have to grow to learn how to have, basically, you're being given the world by Tony and learning to kind of accept it and appreciate it and learn that you can lose it like that. Far From Home is basically the journey of Peter learning to accept that he's going to lose people and have to learn to grow and also learn to not just trust everybody and basically learn to kind of harden himself as a hero and know that he can't just, oh yeah, hey, you're Peter, you're cool, great, all right, cool, you were best friends. Here's freaking eyeglass tech for a guy who I don't know. But he had to learn to grow and become harder as a person and as a character, and had to go through these hills and valleys as character for Peter to grow. Whereas Spider-Man No Way Home is, you've learned how to use the awesome tech. You've learned how you can't trust everybody. Now it's time for you to learn what it actually means to be Spider-Man, how it is to be Spider-Man. That there are situations with greater power comes great responsibility, which I love that they brought that back around. I know a lot of people probably eye rolled at it, but that is the crux of Spider-Man. And it clearly, I mean, it's run through all three generations of the Spider-Man, that he now has to learn in this film what it is like to actually be Spider-Man. What does it mean to be Spider-Man? I love the journey that John Watts' director and Kevin Feige and all them put Tom Holland's character through these three films. And we're seeing that in those first 40 minutes, which is what leads him. Now, he's still a kid. He's still going to make stupid mistakes like he did go to Doctor Strange, where I love that moment where Doctor Strange's like, you didn't call them? You didn't call them, talk to MIT, and say, "Hey, change your mind." You could do that.
Your first choice was to come here and ask me.
Exactly. That's such a great line. But yes, go ahead and continue what you were going to say. I wanted to make sure I got the 3 movie thing in here before I went too far. But yeah,
don't remember what I was talking about.
Sorry,
it had to do with something with the plot early in the movie, but I just don't remember.
We were talking about how he had to be desperate enough to go to Doctor Strange. That's where we were going. But
I will say one comment I do want to say. It's kind of deals the beginning and deals the end of the movie, but I'll talk about it now because it's not like a major plot. But in talking about the whole series, one of the things I've been very torn about with this iteration of Spider-Man is the tech. It's like, while it's cool seeing instant kill mode and all these weird things he has and all this stuff, it's like at the same time I'm like, they're turning him into basically Iron Man, and I don't.
He's Iron Spider, basically.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't think I like that. I was enjoying the movies, I loved it, but at the same time, like, we've had Iron Man. Like, I would rather just keep Spider-Man a different character, which is why I know this is way at the end of the movie, but when he basically sews his own brand new, just plain old spider suit, I was like, yes, let's get back to Spider-Man.
I mean, that's like I said, that's the journey that I was talking about. Like, he has to learn how to become Spider-Man, because by end, like I said, we're just gonna go ahead and jump to the end real quick. The number one crux that it's always been for Tom Holland Spider-Man for a lot of people has been, he's just basically little Iron Man. He has all this stuff. It's basically, he's all this. Like, he's not Spider-Man. He's just Tony Stark's lackey. It's like, okay, I get it. I still love Spider-Man.
Well, I agree.
At the end of this film,
now his personality, nothing like Tony, obviously.
Exactly. By the end of this film, he no longer has the tech. Granted, I think he would still have his suit, because it's not like it got damaged or anything. So I think he would still have the Iron, Spider-Man suit, but he clearly didn't wear it by the end. He doesn't have the money to back him anymore, because Happy doesn't know who he is anymore. He doesn't have MJ or Ned, technically. He basically is limited. He didn't graduate. Like, he dropped out of school, because when he's moving into his apartment, you see that he's got a GED book.
Mm-hmm.
He has no money. He's got no Aunt May. He is basically back to being what Tobey Maguire was and what Andrew Garfield was. He's a poor, maybe a college student, because how the hell is he going to afford college? Like, he might be able to take some tests or whatever and maybe get some scholarships that way. But he doesn't have all this crap anymore. He's living in a danky apartment. He's poor. He's a GED graduate, or he will be a GED graduate with no high school diploma. And now he's having to make his own suits, which is what he did in the first place in the very beginning when Tony first met him in Civil War.
Yeah.
We now have the Spider-Man that I think all the true Spider-Man fans had been wanting for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, without having all the tech and gadgets and all that stuff. We are now going to get that going into the new trilogy with him. And so anyone, as I said with everyone in my non-spoiler review, if you have had issues with this Tom Holland Spider-Man and how he's gone about with his character and his gadgets, by the end of this film, you're going to be happy, because all that gets taken away. And he's now the Spider-Man that you're wanting out of this film, because of the journey that they have put him through. And now he is ready to be that Spider-Man. Like you said, you have that moment with him and MJ in the donut diner when he's coming in, he's rehearsing his lines, and then he sees her and he sees the Band-Aid, and he looks at her and he looks at Ned, and he realizes, I can't do this. I can't bring them back in to this world. Like, he could have said same thing to Happy in the gravesite. Hey, Happy, I'm Spider-Man. But he could have done that. But then he realized, look what I've done to Happy. I can't bring Happy back into this.
Well, I have only 2 points in the movie that I had nitpicks with, and one of them was I remember what I was going to say earlier. The beginning of the movie, basically, where you find out where he's revealed as the villain. He killed Mysterio. This is all his fault. And I feel like he could have just been like, no, that dude was lying, and a lot of people would have been on his side. But
I think we didn't see that, because you have the people who said, I believe Mysterio. And I think that's because they probably did do that, which is probably why he wasn't in jail.
Yeah, I just feel like the world just turned on him awfully fast and just believed the word of one random dude.
Yeah, I agree with that, though.
So there was that, but I mean, I was able to overlook and go along with the movie. And then again, we're jumping ahead. We're going to go all over the place. the end of the movie, before he went back to the donut shop and things like that, when it was first set, when there's like, all these people are coming because anybody who knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man, they're the ones that are trying to come through.
I think you're about to go the same route that I was going to go, which was my little nitpick, but continue. I want to see if we hit the same spot.
But okay, I get that. You got to make everybody forget about it. But why did he have to leave? Why couldn't he stay right there? And as soon as the spell's saying, hey, guys, just say, hey, Dr. Strange, you know how you can do this forgetful spell? I'm Peter Parker. I'm Spider-Man. Hey, MJ, Ned, we're best friends.
You see that black dialogue that goes your word? I gave you that.
Yeah. Or write a note, put it in Dr. Strange's hands. The minute he forgets, he's like, oh, no, have Dr. Strange do a recording in his own on his phone. Say, hey, look, remember this. See, now I understand that he wanted everybody to forget, but I don't know why he had to like leave and like make everyone he knew in the world that he wanted to know, he could tell them again. And now I understand later on when he goes back to the donut shop, he's rethought things. He's thinking, oh, I put these people in danger. But at the moment, he was just like, okay, see you, MJ.
The only thing I can think of, and this is very, very, I don't want to say it's lazy, but it's very, he did it probably because of this, is if he did it right then and there, then they won't forget, which could probably still leave cruxes in the cracks to have people break through. That's not explained though. So yeah, there was one of the points where as I was watching the movie, was like, well, just stay put. Stay.
And I have a third nitpick, but we'll talk about that with post credits. So yeah,
I have a that's not where I thought where I was going with, but there was the one nitpick I had. And listen, this is a nitpick. It's not anything that really like deterred the film for me, but it was just like it was a line of dialogue from I can't remember if it was Doctor Strange who said it or it was one of the villains, where it's anyone who knew that Peter was Spider-Man was coming through. Okay, so it's everyone who knows who Peter is. So where was the other Aunt May's? Where was Kirsten Dunst's MJ? Where was Gwen Stacy, Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy? Where was Topher Grace's Venom? Where was...
They asked for too much money.
James, hold on. Where was James Franco? Where was Dane DeHaan? All of them. Now, granted, it's probably because they couldn't get them. But because it's like, well, you go, oh, they're dead. Well, no, because we've seen that with Doc Ock and Defoe. It seems that they pulled them in right when they were about to die.
Well, the thing is, here's the way I saw that, because I thought of that. But I really don't have a problem with that. It was Dr. Strange that said that. He's basically said anybody who knows that Peter Parker is trying to come through.
Yeah.
Now, but I think that like these are like the 5 who snuck through before he closed it, because obviously he says that. I mean,
but then both Spider-Mans fell through as well.
Well, they could come through the exact same. So 7 or whatever snuck through before, whatever it was. But I think that they weren't trying to say everybody who knew is here now. They were saying, because that's why they showed thousands more that are about to come through.
It was more or less.
These are a few that snuck through before he was able to contain it.
It was just more or less that line of dialogue left a huge gaping door. Where I'm like, well, then where's?
See, I didn't think so, because I think he said something about that some got through, but not necessarily everybody. But
yeah, because I mean that was one of those things. But here's the thing though. So no, never mind. That fixes it. I was gonna say like, but no, there's a line of dialogue that fixes that as well. So I'm not gonna even mention it. But that was to me, it was like I was like driving to work. I was like, well, he said that, so then technically wouldn't all of them come through as well? But your explanation there, that's enough to fix it. So my thing done. I'm good. But yeah, it's. First things first, and I know see this is where you're like, I didn't care. The appearance of Daredevil, hell yes. Brian has never watched the Netflix series Daredevil, guys.
That is, to me, now granted I haven't watched it, so I'm not excited about the character.
You need to.
I plan to actually. And
you're gonna have to now because now Kingpin's back too. For anyone who hasn't watched Hawkeye yet, Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio's back, and now Daredevil's back, guys. I'm so happy. Now we need John. I
plan to watch the show now. But my thing with Daredevil is that was the one moment in this movie, I think the only one I can think of, that made me feel this is just fan service. There's a lot of people who claim the whole movie is fan service, but this is just like, ooh, let's put in Daredevil they recognize. And sure enough, he pops up and everybody's like cheering, woo! And then he catches the break and they're all like, woo! And I'm like, this has zero to if he had anything to do with the story. If he came back later on, fine. But he had nothing to do with the story except to show up and have people go, "Hey, look, guys, it's Daredevil." And
I hate the term fan service so much because I
but
feel
you
like
can't deny that's what that scene was. They had no other purpose.
Because literally they're opening the door for the series. That's why Hawkeye's episode released the day before Spider-Man showing Kingpin. It was announcing that basically.
And I don't care about Kingpin being on there either.
You would if you watched the freaking series, bro. Because Kingpin is one of the main villains of Spider-Man, and Daredevil prominently does work a lot with Spider-Man in comics and stuff like that. So they basically were building the cruxes for the future films because Peter is not going to have the money, and Matthew Murdock is not he's a poor man's lawyer. And stuff like that. So it was bringing him in. It was leaving a breadcrumb for future films. And then, like I said, Hawkeye, I guess we're talking Hawkeye a little bit, bringing in Kingpin is bringing that in as well. It's grounding down the New York aspect. That was the other part, too. It's like everyone's going, like MJ and Ned's going to MIT, which is in Boston. It's like Spider-Man's not going to Boston. He's a New York superhero. Is he going to just go back and forth to Boston? Like, that was never going to work. But when he showed up, I was so happy because he is one character. He's like Henry Cavill with Superman. Like, I still want to be Superman. Like, I didn't want to stop being Superman. Like, he is just, I was like, please let me come back and be Daredevil. I want to be Daredevil. John Bernthal is Punisher. He says, as long as they do Punisher correct, I want to come back and be Punisher, which I hope to God they do. The biggest thing that's going to be big for them is that they're going from an R-rated series and have to drop back down to PG-13. Because Daredevil and Punisher is very R in terms of their violence and gore and stuff like that. So they're really going to have to cut that shit down. But I
could see Daredevil being toned down without a problem. Punisher, I don't know. Punisher will be tough.
Punisher in general will be very, very hard. But I mean, if they're going to do R-rated Deadpool, then you can do R-rated Punisher still. Daredevil, yeah, they're just going to have to kind of make the brutality of the fights a little more cleaner. But it's definitely possible. Now, they can leave Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist.
Nobody cares about them.
No one cares about that. But
I mean, I did enjoy Jessica Jones season 1 I watched. It was decent.
Season 1 Jessica Jones was great. Yeah. It was the seasons after that I was like, eh. And even Luke Cage season 1 was fine. It was Luke Cage season 2 that I didn't care for. And Iron Fist, Iron Fist. But yeah, I was so excited when I saw him. And I love that moment where he kind of gave away who he was when he grabbed the brick. He's like,
oh, I'm a really good lawyer.
So I love that line.
That was good. I will say that was good.
Yes, that was a great moment. And I also love how happy he was like, wait, why am I in trouble? What's going on? I love that Jon Favreau was basically, I love how he was not confident happy. Which great, he wasn't confident happy in Far From Home because he was like in love with Aunt May. Mm-hmm. But I love that they kept building on that. And I love the happy character in this one, especially when we get to that one moment, which we'll touch on a little bit later, but that moment where he realized he needed to sacrifice himself in order for Peter to get away and survive. So by pulling himself in front of the SWAT, I'm assuming it was SWAT, so that way it gave Peter that moment to get out of there. It was a great moment. And then, of course, he had the moment at the cemetery. Let's go ahead and get the Doctor Strange aspects out of this. What were your thoughts on Doctor Strange? Because that was you and I's big worry, was that we were afraid that Doctor Strange was going to overtake the film, and he didn't, because they basically trapped him for like 12 hours.
Well, he didn't, because I mean, you saw a lot of him in the trailer because there's so much of the trailer came from early in the movie because they didn't want to give away too much at the end. So there was ton of Doctor Strange in the movie, which I like Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah.
So I don't have any problems with Benedict Cumberbatch. So I had no problem with the character, but I didn't want it to be Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. I want it to be a Spider-Man, with a little Doctor Strange in it. And sure enough, that's what we got. Now, I think they used him just the right amount. I think that, especially because, in trailers and things, you saw like Peter with like some kind of Doctor Strange magic thing on him. We're like, oh, what? He's getting Doctor Strange's powers or something like that. But then, it turns out it was just this one device that he gave him.
I also love that everyone thought it was like a Doctor Strange Spider-Man suit. It's just
turned inside out.
I loved that.
Well, that's because I don't know if that was intentional or not, but when you ever saw shots of that, maybe it was just they were far shots. You just saw the black with the gold seams and things like that.
Yeah.
When close up, you can see all the wiring and things.
Yeah, you can see like parts sticking out. I love that that's what they ended up doing. I love that wasn't a new suit. It was just inside out.
People in my theater, I'm pretty sure, didn't catch that. because he's washing it and he kind of turns inside out and like looks at it.
Like, oh.
And then later on, he's wearing the suit, and people like, I swear, there's people going, "Oh, look, his new suit." I'm like, no,
it's not a new suit. Like it's literally like sticking out and stuff.
Yeah.
I love that little part. But yeah, that was the main thing I think a lot of people had with Doctor Strange in the trailer was, well, Doctor Strange wouldn't do this. Like Doctor Strange from the first film would do this, but after Endgame and all that, like he wouldn't do this. But the way, like I said, because the trailer veered you one way, this one it was more, look, he's been through enough.
I'm not sure how I feel about Doctor Strange not being Sorcerer Supreme anymore. But that's for a whole conversation for Doctor Strange conversation.
But that'll be for Multiverse of Madness and stuff. Like I love that. Like, also because I got blipped. It's a technicality. Shut up. Kind of thing. I love that. The Doctor Strange fight, I was worried about where it was going to go because when we first saw it, I thought it was because it was the world, like the multiverse is breaking in. Like we see in the trailer, Spider-Man, him shooting through, looked like the thing, like the town going on and stuff.
Train and then the train going around him.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, okay, I don't know where this is gonna go, but I totally forgot about the mirror realm from Doctor Strange. And when they went into that,
but when we got to that point, because in the trailers, you're like, okay, Doctor Strange wins this fight because he sucks Peter back in and like knocks his, spirit out of him.
Another great Peter moment.
And what? By the way, they never explained how Peter was still able to like move his body's arms and stuff.
They never did. Yeah, they never
explained that. So I don't know if that's a loose end or not that they're going to tie up later on. But they didn't explain that. But then the fight clearly continued after that, which we weren't expecting. And then when it went, I loved the way that when they got to the mirror realm, when Peter's like, "Wait, this is just geometry."
I know this.
He's like, you know what's better than magic? Math.
He basically did Lex from Jurassic Park. I know this.
It's a music system.
Yeah, I love that.
I loved the way that they found a way for Peter to win a fight in this mirror dimension that clearly Doctor Strange should kick his ass in.
And just completely outsmarted him. And I love that he was like, you know what it's like being in there for 12 hours? It's just like all it was great. But I loved that was one of my favorite parts of Doctor Strange was the mirror realm fights because it was very Inception-like. And when I finally realized like, oh, that's what they're doing, I was like, okay. Because I saw that in the trailers, I was like, that's a little too otherworldly. But then I realized what they were at. I'm like, yeah, I love the way this shot. I love the way everything's going through this and all this kind of stuff. And I love how Doctor Strange used his portals against Peter, where he would just like swing and like go right through and all of a sudden, and then like obviously the cape, is fighting to this. It was also like that moment where Peter was wearing the cape, which everyone wanted to see. And it was just like a quick moment where it's like, get off me, Mr. Cape. And it's just like all this kind of stuff. But I love what they did with Doctor Strange in this. I think everything that I was worried about with him got completely basically ironed out, and I think he did a great job in it. Since we're still on Doctor Strange, any thoughts on the final post-credit with the trailer of Multiverse of Madness? Anything you want to add with that? Except that I'm super excited that they're bringing back Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah, I'm super excited about them bringing back Chiwetel Ejiofor.
When I saw Chiwetel, I was like,
okay,
yes!
So my whole take on the multiverse was that I don't want it. And then if they're going to do it within one movie, actually, one thing I forgot to say earlier, I might have been more open to the multiverse had they not just essentially done it in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
That was always you had said that's always your.
That was my thing. I think that takes away from it. Yeah, but they did it here, and I'm like, okay, it works. But do I want this to be an ongoing thing? So obviously, though, we already knew the title, so we knew it was going to carry over into Doctor Strange. And I'm still uncertain how I feel about the whole multiverse thing. It's clearly just a teaser. It doesn't really tell us much of anything.
It showed a lot more than I thought they were.
But it looks good. But I really, really, really don't like that they are apparently, it would seem, we don't know for sure, tying in the What If series. Because you get the Dark Doctor Strange.
But see, that was what a lot of people thought. A lot of people thought Dark Doctor Strange was Doctor Strange in this. When he was like, with the way the trailer was kind of very like.
Well, that's what they thought in this, and people thought it might be Agatha. People might thought of other things because why would he do this? But in this, you clearly see good Doctor Strange talking to this
evil Doctor
dark-looking Doctor Strange.
It could be Mephisto.
And oh god, don't start that. You heard it here first. Actually, you didn't.
Yes.
I'm sure 1,000 people have said it already.
Exactly.
But it's because the what if, I love the concept of what if, whether it was in comics or in the, I love they do that as an animated series. And because I'm like, the whole point of the title of it is what if, like these little side stories, like, hey, what if this happened? What if this happened? It's not called in an alternate reality. It's called what if. And so they did these series, but then, you know, I heard they're going to try to make these canon, and I'm like, please don't.
They're gonna do Captain Britain, Carter's Captain Britain or whatever.
And so with this multiverse thing now, and with this evidence of the Dark Doctor Strange, now it could just be Dark Doctor Strange and not refer to it, but it would seem that they're going to try to make the what if canon, if not in an alternate universe. And it might tie in, and that's the only thing that worries me about this.
The other thing we could get out of this too is we could get, just like with Rise of Skywalker, a dark race situation where it's just his brain messing with him.
It may just be. I love the concept of a Dark Doctor Strange. I just don't want it to tie in what if as a series. You know, I love the series by itself.
I get that, but yeah, as soon as I saw Chiwetel, I was like, "Thank you." I was so worried. I
always heard he was going to be in the second movie. I was just afraid he'd be like a cameo, but it seems like he's a major part.
Yeah, I was like, why was I worried? It's Kevin Feige. He ain't going to just forget that Chiwetel's there. But I was so worried. But when I saw him, I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much for bringing Chiwetel back. So I'm super, super excited for that. But we've now learned with Endgame and now this, trailers can be very deceiving now. Mm-hmm. We can't trust the trailers anymore because there are scenes that are reshot, rewritten, made you believe one way when it's actually going the other way. So
got Andrew Garfield out there lying to you.
Dude, give that man an Oscar.
I'm sure we'll get into McGuire and Garfield.
We'll 100% we're going to give that.
Now, I don't know how McGuire just apparently avoided the spotlight. Maybe because he's not doing much lately. While Garfield had to go out and promote Tick Tick Boom and stuff.
Yeah,
but he was put in such a shitty position because it's like he can either here's the possibilities. One, he's not in the movie and he's telling the truth, but nobody's going to believe him. Two, he is in the movie and he says he is, and they kill him.
Yeah.
And three, he just lies over and over and over again every time of the 12,000 times he's asked about it, which is what he had to do. And I don't blame the dude because what else could he do?
If I was actually Garfield, I would have been like, because I've seen his things where he's like, I'm not in the movie. Like, I'm telling you, I'm not in it. Yeah. Like, just please stop. I'm not in the movie. I swear to God, I'm not in it. And then afterwards he goes, well, I wasn't. Andrew Garfield is not in Spider-Man. Peter Parker is in Spider-Man. I was like,
what, he said that?
No, I'm saying if he did that, good job, Andrew Garfield. But that dude deserves an Oscar, not just for Tick Tick Boom, but just for having to put up with that. Because he's trying to promote the hell out of Tick Tick Boom, which like I said, you and I have talked about Tick Tick Boom. He does a phenomenal job in that film. He deserves a nomination for Tick Tick Boom. But everything was about Spider-Man. And I felt so bad for him because I was like, we all know he's in it. Like, we all know he's in it. But
we might as well get into that. We might as well get into the McGuire Garfield of it all.
Do we want to do that, or do we want to go into the villains first?
Whichever you want to do.
Let's go villains first, because the Garfield McGuire thing is such a big, important piece. I'd rather get the villains out of the way. But yeah, Doctor Strange, great. I liked everything he did with him. I'm excited to see where we go with Doctor Strange. The villains. First things first. And I said this in my non-spoiler review. Lizard and Sandman were kind of worthless.
I will say I was happy to see both Thomas Hayden Church and Rhys Ifans in the movie. My thought was that because we hadn't seen them publicize in the trailer or even like interviews, things like that, that the other three were going to be in the movie, and these two, the characters of Lizard and Sandman, would be in there, but never speak or never see them in their human form, and so that they weren't actually going to be those two actors. But I'm glad that we did get to at least.
And I love that we finally got to actually see them. Like I remember, I think it was like 20 minutes left in the movie. I was like, man, I was like, are we ever actually going to see Thomas Hayden Church?
I was thinking he only did voice work for him. Like he didn't want to come back and do it.
I was like, man, because all that whole time where he's like talking in his human form esque, and he's still Sam. Like they could have had him.
They just CG'd that, yeah.
Like they could have just been Thomas Hayden. Like they could have just had him be there for that. Like I get Lizard. Like yeah, he's Lizard. It's him going back to name.
Kirk Connors, Rhys Ifans.
Yeah, I like him going back. Like I get that because he was basically full on Lizard by the end of Amazing Spider-Man. But Thomas Hayden Church, like he can go back and forth between forms. I was just like, maybe they just couldn't get him for it, and he just did the voice work for it.
Or just didn't want to, yeah.
Yeah, or just didn't want to. But when they finally brought them both back at the very, very end, I was like, all right, there they are. Because I remember I was in the theater, and we finally see Thomas Hayden. I was like, about time. I actually said that out loud. I was like, oops, kind of thing. But yeah, their characters were kind of just there to just be there. Obviously, Sandman is because it makes everything just a lot bigger because he can be this over thing. Lizard's kind of pointless in the film.
I will say I didn't get Sandman's turn because Sandman was kind of like,
Sandman. I think Sandman's whole turn was that he just really wanted to get back home to his daughter, and 2, he didn't want to lose his powers. So his whole thing was, I just want to go home.
Well, his big thing is wanting to get home. Spider-Man's trying to get him home, but all of a sudden he turns against Spider-Man. Like, I'm like, you don't want to stay here, dude. You want to go home. I think
more or less is when the power shifted between Peter to the villains.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of those things, especially because you saw it at the end, where it was like he just wants to go home, whereas like Electro wants to stay. So I think he was just trying to stay close to whoever had the box, so he could take it at the last second and go home. So instead of just siding with Peter like Doc Ock did and stuff like that, I think he was playing wherever the power thing laid. Mm-hmm. And obviously he doesn't know this Peter, so he doesn't trust him. He even said that, I don't trust you. I don't know what you're going to do, kind of thing. And so I think that he was just kind of playing where the power shifted throughout the film. Granted, there was no, once he saw Toby, there should have been no reason for him to keep fighting. Because at the end of Spider-Man 3, they were relatively okay with each other.
Did you say he was taken? He said he was taken right the moment before he would have died, right? Or no, because Sandman didn't die.
Sandman didn't die. He just
he didn't die.
He's kind of blew away
within that movie, within Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, he just blew away.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, so yeah, his motivations were he just wanted to go home to his daughter, and yeah, he probably could have been on the good side, but then it's like, but then you lose the big sand monster and all that kind of stuff. But those were the 2 villains I was like, they didn't really have a whole lot to work with. They didn't really do a whole lot. The main crux of the film was Jamie Foxx, Alfred Molina, and Willem Dafoe. And I'm so glad Jamie Foxx came back.
I'm glad Jamie Foxx came back, but I almost feel like he had some kind of stipulations contract. It's like, I don't want to look nerdy anymore. I want to be cool because no other character.
I think they were just like, look, man, I don't want to be all blue.
Well, no, I don't even mean that. I mean, even when he took human form, he wasn't like comb over, nerdy looking.
Well, yeah, one of those things was like, I'm going to be Jamie Foxx.
Well, that's just it. No other villain or no other character in the entire movie came into this and goes, oh, I look different when I'm here in this universe. But yet his is like, oh, I like how I look here. And it's like, why do you get to change?
Well, no, granted, because he's connected to the power of the electricity. No one else was. And so he was basically, like, at first, he's like, this feels weird. Like, it makes
but then why does it change his physique and his face? And
I mean, he can literally change into electricity. So he could change himself maybe into whatever he wants. But I'm actually glad that they got rid of the comb over, like, weird.
Well, no, I don't think he should look like that. I would have thought, but, I would have thought he just had more of a like I never hated the Electro look in Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I liked that he did have that at the very beginning of this, and then they changed him. And I love that they tied in using an arc reactor.
Oh yeah! As soon as I saw the arc reactor, I was like,
"Yeah, you have Electro, unlimited power."
Totally feeling that.
Yeah.
As soon as he goes, "Ooh," I feel that. I was like, "There's no way he's not gonna like this." Is Electro is going to be the crux that's going to break this, and it ended up being Dafoe, but it was one of those like, "There's no way." Like Electro is going to become the main villain. And then I was like, well, no, of course not. Of course it's going to be Green Goblin. Like, come on. That's like saying that the Joker is the good guy throughout the film. But I love that they gave Jamie Foxx a chance to kind of go out there and be like, hey, don't necessarily redo Electro, but here's your second chance to make Electro matter. Because everyone's shit, not necessarily on Jamie Foxx. It was more or less the director, like Mark Webb, and then on how they did Jamie Foxx in Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it's like, here's your second chance to go out there and fix Electro and make Electro a badass and make Electro the way you intend Electro to be. And I think Jamie Foxx did great. Yeah. He was more like, oh God, I'm blanking on the character's name from Horrible Bosses.
Oh, I don't know a character's name for that. I know who you're talking about though.
Bad Motherfucker?
Something like that. It was something like that.
I was like, he had more of that kind of feel to it was like I was totally okay with, because he wasn't nerdy anymore. He was just kind of cool Jimmy Fox, like in Baby Driver or something. Like he was playing that version of Jimmy Fox in the film.
Motherfucker Jones, by the way.
Motherfucker Jones. I knew Motherfucker was a part of it. Or he was basically his Baby Driver character. But I really, really enjoyed Jimmy Fox in this. I loved his motivations, and I loved that point where Peter put that power conductor or whatever on him, and each green light, you could see his body like freaking out, like, and then he's just like what do I do? And then as soon as he saw the tide turn, he's like off kind of thing, and like he's like, all right, you had me for a second, but I was like, no. And then I love that moment too at the end of the film with him and Garfield, where they're like, hey, I'm nothing. And I love the moment that he had with Andrew Garfield, because that was a character that was just so misunderstood. And it wasn't Andrew Garfield's Peter that did him wrong. It was Spider-Man in a sense. And even that Spider-Man,
most of the villains, I think that's one of the points of the whole movie, is that most of the villains here were not just evil incarnate. They were people who, got changed somehow or got fooled somehow or things. And it's like, well, if we can get you back to your normal self, you won't be some insane killer.
The only one that didn't have a connection to Peter was Sandman, except for Sandman killed Uncle Ben. But like Doc Ock has a personal connection to Peter. Green Goblin or Osborn has a personal connection to Peter. Lizard has a personal connection to Peter. Mm-hmm. Electro has not really a personal connection. He's a huge Spider-Man fan, but if him and Andrew Garfield's Peter had hung out, I think that Electro probably would have changed. And so
as far as Max was concerned, he did have a connection to Spider-Man. So,
but I'm talking about if he would have had a connection to Peter, then he probably wouldn't have gone down that path that he did with Electro.
Right.
But I really loved him. Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. I think we all kind of leaned that we thought that Doc Ock was going to kind of be a good guy.
The trailers, I think, from that, a lot of us kind of got that he's fighting on their side at some point, which is why when he suddenly shows up at the end, I don't think they fooled anybody. You're like, okay, he's going to turn in.
Exactly. Well, because, by the end of Spider-Man 2, he was effectively good. That was the part that was confusing me, is when he came back through and he's so angry. It's like, you do remember that by the end of the film, you were good. Like, you sacrificed yourself to save your, basically, the world from the sun thing. But then they said when he got pulled, I was like, oh, when he got pulled, he hadn't turned yet. And so that was really interesting when they explained it. Because the whole time I was like, why is he so like angry and stuff like that? And it's like, oh, it's because where he got pulled, he was still the old Doc Ock. And I love that, like, that whole moment. Like, I love how Peter took control. And he's all like, what are you doing? He's like,
And it was his own fault because he stole the nanotech.
Exactly.
And then Peter's like, oh, I'll use that against you. Yeah.
I love the whole, like, I control you. You can't do nothing. And then the whole things are just talking. I loved that. Like I said, Tom Holland making that Spider-Man stuff work. Yeah. I love that, just like how annoyed, like old man annoyed Doc Ock was throughout the film, because he was just like, I can't do anything. And I love that they just kept making a point of view showing that he did not have control of the whole way through. But I also love that when he did get the chip fixed, the first thing he did was give back the nanotech to Peter.
Yeah,
because he didn't have to do that. He could have just kept it. And I don't think Peter probably would even have asked for it. I don't think Tom Holland's Peter even thought of it.
I think he would have, because he doesn't want that in the hands of anybody besides himself. Because,
Yeah, but he was the only one that, at the end of it, he never went back to being bad. He got knocked out of the building by Electro, and then we didn't see him again.
But at the same time, though, it's like Tony Stark gave him this nanotech, and he doesn't want to even if he's supposedly a good guy now. I mean, if Quentin, Mysterio taught him anything, it's don't give away Tony's tech.
True, but he didn't give away all of it. He only had a part of it.
Yeah.
But Doc Ock could have, probably adapted that in his own way. Because the whole time I was thinking about this is when Tom was like, oh, let me fix you guys. And he's doing all this. I'm like, you realize that you're basically making them more powerful to kill Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire when they come back.
Well, I think the theory was I'll fix them and they won't
make them good. Yeah, but
here's my one problem with the whole fixing theory idea is that they all went along with it. Now I understand they were all imprisoned in his the wizard's dungeon.
It was their only way to get out of it.
But then they're like, okay, so we're gonna go and I'm gonna fix you guys. So they take them out of the dungeon and they go to Happy's apartment. I don't see why Jamie Foxx then would have been like, okay, see ya.
Because Jamie didn't want to leave. So Jamie kind of wanted to see what was going to happen, and then he saw the arc reaction.
And they left Lizard in the van. I mean, it's like why wouldn't
that was the part that made no
why
sense.
were they going along with it?
Yeah, why would you leave Lizard in the van?
Yeah.
Now, granted, it's because there's no way you're going to be able to bring Lizard up without people seeing it. But it was one of those things like, do you trust Lizard?
That's just it. Lizard, I don't know why these people, once they were freed from the dungeon, I don't know why they suddenly decided to go along with Peter's plan. But again,
like I said, Sandman was on the fence. Osborn was good Osborn at the time. Doc Ock was basically trapped. Electro kind of wanted to see where the tech was going to kind of figure it out. And then, Lizard was in the van, which clearly he was not a part of it the whole way through. But now, obviously, to me, the MVP, Willem Dafoe, I never thought he would have doubled down and did better in this than he did in Spider-Man 1. But holy crap, Willem Dafoe killed it.
I loved him so much more in this, not just Willem Dafoe being Willem Dafoe as Norman. First of all, big plus, smash the Power Ranger costume, first chance you get. Boom. There's 2 thumbs up right there.
He's a big green elf.
But and I'm like, okay, well, maybe he's going to, and sure enough, next thing you see with May, it's like maybe he's going to be a good guy. We don't know that he's going to be evil because he, in the trailer shot of the 3 villains coming at him, he wasn't in that shot.
There, yeah.
So you're like, well, maybe he turns out to be a good guy too. And I also I was wondering how much of the movie he was going to be in because we didn't see him in those final shots. Maybe he's an early villain.
Granted, because everything you saw in him was spoiler. Like you couldn't show him in barely anything.
Yeah. There's that, and then, but sure enough, it turns out that he's the reason for this whole multiverse mess because he throws that bomb into Doctor Strange's box, which sounds dirtier than it is, and
whatever.
Yeah.
In the box. But yeah, his performance, and I love because his Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde performance in Raimi was good, but it's Sam Raimi doing it.
It's Raimi. It was played bigger.
It was played more like Evil Dead-esque kind of thing. Where in this, it felt more believable. It felt more kind of like Golem Smeagol in a sense. Absolutely. Like you knew at some point the other shoe was going to drop. And I love that he kind of kept his face like sad when he was good, and then as soon as he went, oh shit.
Well, there was the moment, I think it was in Happy's apartment, where Peter's like, I sense something's weird. I can't figure out what it is.
And then he shoots.
And I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, what, is somebody else going to come through? I don't know what's going on here. And then sure enough, he catches.
That's the one thing that they changed in this that I didn't know if I liked it or not was when Peter's Peter tingle went off. He basically just like was like a dog. Like when a dog sees something, he just stops.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's just like, what's he doing? Because he's not saying, guys, wait. He's just like, and then like 30 seconds later, bam. I was like, dude, catch us up. What's going on? What's going on? Kind of thing. But yeah, when he hit his hand, I was like, oh shit. And what I loved about it, and Willem Dafoe even said, I will only come back if I can do the physical action.
And I didn't read any of that till afterwards. So yeah.
Because I'm watching this, I'm like, this
he didn't want it to be a glorified cameo. Yeah.
This fight is brutal. Like, this is so much better. Like, what was it? Spider-Man was 2002?
The first one? Yeah.
This is 19 years later. He's doing some of these moves. Like, honestly, this was a wrestling match. He was doing power bombs and spine busters and all these wrestling moves. Their fight in Happy's apartment / hallway, and then at the very end on the basically Cap's shield were brutal.
No, I'm sure there are certain spots where they did use stuntmen.
Oh, absolutely.
Just like Tom Holland is not going to do all his own stunts, but for most part that he wanted to do his own thing, and he looks like he hasn't aged a day since then. No, I don't know how much that's makeup, CGI, whatever, but it looks great.
I loved what they did with it. The fight sequences for Green Goblin were the best of the film. Like, Sandman's obviously going to be all CG. Lizard's going to be all CG. Even Doc Ock, for the most part, it's all going to be all CG. This was the first fight that just felt real and brutal, and especially at the very end, which we'll touch the very end fight, but because of what had happened at the end fight, watching Tom Holland's character just go. I loved that moment. Like, you're just like, you don't want him to go full dark side, but that's why everyone just stopped. And it wasn't until never mind. We'll talk about that later. I don't want to go into it. But that was the other thing too, is when the whole big turn happens and everything goes to shit. and they're, he's falling through and stuff like that, and Aunt May's running. Now, because I think everyone thought Happy was the one that was going to die, because we knew it was like one of them's going.
Especially when every review is like emotional. You're like, okay, somebody's dying.
Oh yeah, well, because I even said it in my reviews, this is the darkest and saddest Spider-Man movie that there's been ever made, and it's true. And like, because I think even in the trailers, you had that one moment where Happy's in the car and you see all the laser eye from the SWAT guns. Like, oh shit, they're gonna kill Happy, which made more sense. That maybe Jon Favreau. Fuck, shut up. This is gonna be the new. I'm blanking on the one actor that I could never get right anymore because my brain's overthinking it. I figured maybe his character is like, he probably doesn't want to keep playing Happy. Like he probably wants to move on. Marissa Tomei's Aunt May. She ain't going nowhere. But so I think everyone thought Happy was the character that was going to die. But when that moment came, when Green Goblin came through and busted Aunt May, and she got back, I'm like, no.
You're like, there's no way she just got knocked down.
And I was like, no, she took that thing fucking hard. Like, there's no way. And then she got back up and I'm like, I don't want Marissa Tomei to die because it's Marissa Tomei.
That's how I felt. I'm like, I love Marissa Tomei. I don't want her to die. I mean, but she got back up. I'm like, I don't believe it, but I'm okay with it.
At this point, she does need to die now.
Yeah.
And like that moment, like, well, no, because the way she got hit, like, no, she's not superhuman. Like,
and as soon as she said, no, I just need to catch my breath, you're like, oh, she's dying.
Yeah, and that moment I think was done. It was heartbreaking. Like I got emotional watching that moment. And it's because of how phenomenal Tom Holland is in it.
Yeah, while I was sad that her character died, and you felt for Tom Holland, I for some reason that one did not feel as emotional weighty to me as I thought it would. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just because we're used to seeing to me Peter Parker lose his aunts and uncles. I don't know, but.
Well, see, because I mean, the Tobey Maguire losing his uncle, that was the first time we saw it live action, so it resonated. Andrew Garfield, I was like, okay, we've seen this before. So when Martin Sheen died, I was like, eh.
Well, this one I kind of felt like we've seen it before too. They just decided to swap it up.
But the thing though,
I think just like the theme. Don't get me wrong.
Outside of Tony, Tom's never lost anybody. He hasn't. So, and this was his fault. Where Tony was, because he did the snap and everything. This is the first time Tom Holland's Peter lost somebody because of his actions, and because of it being Aunt May, and because he only was doing this because Aunt May pushed him to help, and he was doing what Aunt May said, and his whole world at this point is now falling to pieces because he's losing the one person. Because they make a point to really not bring up Uncle Ben with Tom Holland. I think he's name dropped Uncle Ben maybe once in all of his performances. So this moment where he literally cannot do anything, he's trapped. He can't go out there because the police. So he can't just grab Aunt May and move her. He knows he's losing her, and he just has to sit there and live in that moment to the point where, granted, they also kind of let this go too. He got shot. I don't know if it was a beanbag. But he got shot. They never kind of went back to him getting shot. Now, I say if it was a beanbag, it's fine. But he did get shot by the SWAT guy. But I believe it was real ammo because they said open fire on his ass, and I don't think they would have shot beanbags like that. But I love Tom Holland's performance in that. Marissa Tomei's Aunt May. There was one point where she was already dead, and a tear still went down her eye, and I was like, "Would that have still happened if you were dead?" Like you've been dead a good minute. Could have gathering
before she died, and then it just finally the water just broke.
Maybe because it was like the very, very last shot of her. You could see a tear go down, which I was like, oh, but I was like, I don't know if the dead body still would have done that, but that was it. That whole moment with Happy, where he looks in, he looks at Peter, and Peter's just like, he knows, and he realizes he has to sacrifice himself in order for Peter to get away. All that was done so brilliantly.
Which I will say, I was thinking for a moment though. It took me out of the scene for a moment. Was like, all this is going on. Happy pulls up and stops in the car, and the SWAT team's like, "Get on the ground." It's like, as far as they know, he's just some dude who drove up and is like, "What the fuck's going on?"
It's very, very true. I just live here.
Like, why are they attacking Happy? He hasn't done anything.
I think it's because at that point everyone knows who the hell Happy Hogan is at this point. But yeah, that was one thing. He was like, all he did was pull up. He didn't do anything wrong. The only thing I think is that he impeded the movement of the SWAT guys. So he was getting pulled. If anyone had done that, they probably would have gotten arrested. But so yeah, we get that dark, somber moment. We get that moment where he has to be alone. And before we bring obviously the two big ones, that moment where MJ and Ned find him and they have to console him. Beautiful moment. I love that moment where he was finally just letting himself go with Ned and MJ right there before obviously the other two show up. Such a great moment right there. Now let's bring Garfield and Toby into this. That whole moment where they're in the was his Ned's house. And it's like, oh, I just wish we could see Peter.
You know what? I think we need to, especially since we're going to focus so much on. Let's get Ned and MJ out of the way.
Okay, first off, Zendaya, her best performance yet.
Love Zendaya in this movie. Yeah.
Like, she's the one character that we have been the hardest on, because in the first film she was just kind of this, I'm gonna be this sarcastic, snarky, like blah 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 blah. Far From Home, they finally gave her shit to do. They had started to develop her character. And this one, this is the first time where it's like, this is MJ.
And from the beginning, I loved how they did the interrogation scenes where Happy was handling it his way. MJ was handling it like, I know all your tactics. You're not going to.
I love when her and Aunt May were like, don't say anything.
But she's like, I know all your tactics. And then they go to Ned, who the guy's like, hey, the guy in a chair. Yeah, I have a guy in a chair. And he totally buys into it and gives up everything.
So basically, you're implicated that you've been his personal.
So you basically been his main accomplice then.
Can I redact everything? I just.
I like everything I said. Stick it from the record, please.
I will say Ned probably was given the least amount of due. No, he did more than Far From Home. Because Far From Home, he was doing.
Well, this is why I wanted to get into them first. Is the whole Ned might have magic abilities thing, because I mean, yeah, he grabbed Doctor Strange's ring, but even before that, they dropped that one thing as my grandma or my nana says,
there's magic in my family. And stuff.
And I was totally like, okay, this totally laying the groundwork for something at some point. And then as soon as he gets the ring, I'm like, are they going to seriously give him powers? And next thing you know, he's like, open. Which not only does he just like act like he knows to do the whole Doctor Strange fingers, and it's like, okay, whatever.
Well, granted, he's probably seen Doctor Strange at some point do this.
Maybe.
You're telling me that if you've seen Doctor Strange, you would have.
But no, I don't know if this is like they're going to play him into multiverse, if he's going to play into a Shang-Chi sequel for all we know, because we know at the end Wong came and talked to Shang-Chi. Maybe Wong recruits Ned too. I don't know where they're going with this, but I'm like, as much as
if they recruited Awkwafina, they can recruit Ned.
But as much as I don't know how I feel about him suddenly having powers or whatever, being a hero, I thought it was handled very well. I really liked how they used him in this movie.
Well, a lot of people were saying that they were worried that Ned was going to turn on Peter in this film.
And I love that Hobgoblin, which
and I love that got nipped right away when he goes to talk to Toby, and he's like, "Do you have a best friend?" He's like, "Yeah, I did." What happened to him? He's dead when he turned on me. I was just like,
and he's like, "I promise I won't turn on you." And
I love that moment, because that basically was just like killed it for everybody. It's like, okay, that's not gonna happen. Like, just get that.
But I just want to get him out of the way, because obviously he's the one who opens the portal, which
yes, and then like I said, I think that Ned probably got the most out of Ned was in Homecoming. I don't dislike his performance, because Ned's great. He's a great character. Zendaya is like I said, best MJ performance yet. This is the first time that I actually really felt like, this is only like weeks after Far From Home, but you finally felt the relationship between her and Peter Parker. Whereas like in Far From Home, it was like the butterflies, like, I like him, he like me. I don't know, I don't want to give myself away, because, and she explains, that's what I liked about her in Far From Home. She finally kind of explained why she's the way she is. Mm-hmm. And then in this one, she fully embraced basically the relationship and felt like MJ in this film. I think they both did a great job. Zendaya, obviously, the best she's done so far. But yes, they're both in Ned's house. His mom was hilarious, and that whole sequence was great. But get the cobweb in the corner killed me. That was just like,
as long as you're up there.
So yeah, they bring in Peter, and to me, and I'm just as guilty as everyone else in the theater. When the Spider-Man comes running through, everyone thought it was Tobey, because granted, as soon as he jumps through, like, it was hard to tell which suit it was.
Well, when he first opens the portal, it says, "Show me Peter Parker," and he first opens the portal. My mind didn't even go there. My mind went, "There's Tom Holland's."
My mind went there as the very first.
The guy next to me, I sat next to this guy, and he's going, "Oh my god, oh my god!" I'm like, "Would you please stop talking?"
The very very first shot, I didn't see it, but then when I saw that the Spider-Man mask was on, and he was like, "Dude," I'm like, "That's not Tom. That's not Tom." And then he starts coming forward, and I was like, "Oh, it's Toby. It's Toby. It's Toby." And then he jumps through, and then as soon as he put him, I'm like, "Oh, it's Andrew." But the crowd lost their minds when Andrew popped in.
Peter went crazy.
That whole exchange with him and MJ, where she's throwing the bread at him.
Please stop throwing bread at me.
Well, I was trying to see if you had the tingle. I do have the tingle, but not at bread.
And then later on, you see another one just randomly go poop.
He's like, "Prove your Spider-Man. Do more. This is enough. This is enough." Then she throws the bread. Like, "Stop throwing the bread." But yeah, so then his mom's like, "Can you go get the cobweb?" All the way through. I love that moment. Everything Andrew Garfield right there was great. Then Toby, which the crowd lost their minds even more when Toby, which you were probably like, eh.
Honestly, a couple of reasons. Because one, I'm not a fan of Toby. But two, it's like at that point you're like, okay, we know he's coming now, so it wasn't like a surprise. But yeah, my crowd lost their minds
when he come in. He's just kind of like in the joke, like a youth pastor coming in just like that.
You're just like a cool youth pastor.
Well, it's like yeah, that one point where Toby and Garfield were looking at each other and like they both like what they were about to fight. I'm like, are we about to get a Spider-Man fight?
Yeah. Here's the other thing I wondered is I was wondering if they were originally. Now I'll get into it. I wonder if they're originally supposed to have come in being like the same age that we saw them in the movies, because I'm like, there's no way you're going to pull off these people being the same age. But especially because the villains were pulled at their point of death, but we don't know when the Spider-Mans are pulled from the same moment or from something else. But I think
they were clearly from down the road.
Yeah, but that's just it. Is once we saw them, and especially when Toby looked older, I'm like, okay, they're definitely not trying, or else they would have touched that up or something.
Yeah.
And fair enough, they talk about things that happened well after. So
Doc Ock, he's like to Peter, you're all grown up. And all that stuff. So I'm glad that they did that. I'm glad that they didn't like pull them.
Yeah, like I said, that's one of those things I was wondering going into the movie. But as soon as I saw them, like, okay, they're not trying to play it.
Yeah, because we had explanation that Kirsten.
They're not going to buy either of them as like 22 years old or whatever.
Oh, exactly. but I love that we got explanations that Kirsten Dunst's MJ and him are still together. He says it's kind of complicated, but then he's like, yeah, we're together, kind of thing. But that Andrew Garfield has not found his MJ yet. That he's still dealing with the Gwen Stacy, which to me that was.
I'm going to jump ahead.
Go ahead.
That moment.
I was going into that moment. I was going into it.
The single most emotional of the moment of the movie for me.
I had tears in that moment.
Because Tom Holland's going after, and we all wondered, like in the trailer, if they replaced Andrew Garfield with Tom Holland, but no, it was Tom Holland going down. I'm like, okay, maybe not. Then you swept aside, and then you saw Andrew go. The crowd loses their mind.
Yes. I immediately got like goosebumps, and like literally everyone was like, "Get him, Garfield! Get her!" And then he grabs her and he lands, and his face.
That's just it. It was the look that he had. Andrew Garfield deserves an Oscar for that moment alone.
Yes.
That look, because that feeling of redemption. Like I was able to save.
I did it,
and the look in his eyes. I started tearing up.
Oh, I full on teared up, and when MJ's like, "Are you okay?" and he's like, I am now, because he finally. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it.
Yeah,
that moment.
My favorite moment in the entire movie was that 2 seconds right there.
And then, but I love that even that moment when they finally meet up, and I also love the part when Toby was like, "You're Spider-Man too?" Yeah, I don't go around just advertising it, which is exactly what Garfield.
That's what I just said.
But we get that moment when they both show up, and at that point Tom's fucking over. He's like, you're going back. Like, I'm not dealing with this shit. And you get the moments like, I lost my Uncle Ben. Once again, Tom did not bring up his Uncle Ben. I love that they're like, we're not going to have Tom's Uncle Ben.
What's funny is that at first, Garfield didn't bring up Uncle Ben.
No, he brought up Gwen.
It's like McGuire said, I lost my Uncle Ben. And then he's like, I lost Gwen Stacy. And later on, he goes, when I lost my Uncle Ben too. And I'm just like, I thought that was interesting that he's like,
he only brought up his Uncle Ben because with greater power comes greater responsibility line. He's like, yeah, my Uncle Ben said that too. Because I don't think in terms of Garfield's Uncle Ben didn't die because of Garfield. Like it did with Toby. Like Toby's Uncle Ben died because of what Toby did. I can't remember if Andrew Garfield's
his Uncle Ben got killed by a crook because he went out looking for Andrew because he didn't pick up.
But it wasn't. But it wasn't a crook that Garfield could have stopped, like Toby's did.
No, it's more just his fault because Uncle Ben went out at all, basically.
Yeah, which ended up not. He ended up not killing him because Flint Marco ended up killing Uncle Ben and Toby's son, which I still hate that twist.
Yeah,
that twist still doesn't work.
Yeah,
but that moment where they all three had this moment where it's like, look, we've done the same thing, and I like Andrew Garfield just sold the shit out of that scene, and then then they brought it back to that moment where he saves MJ. But yes, Andrew Garfield, to me, I think Andrew Garfield had the biggest redemption because he constantly, and I love that the inside jokes for them where Tobey Maguire's back being a problem because we all know that he almost lost Spider-Man 2 because of his back injury, and then like everyone's like, "Hey, pop your back, bro." And I love how they were how Tom and Garfield were freaked out by Tobey's spiderweb.
Oh, like, does that come out of anywhere else or just your wrist?
Whoa, dude, what the hell? It's like, what? This is normal. No, it's not normal. It's just like, I could watch a whole movie with just those three just talking to each other, and I love how like I said, once again, because Andrew Garfield is known as the least like Spider-Man, the weakest Spider-Man. He's like Peter 1, Peter 2, Peter 3 kind of thing. Like he knows his
personality in this. I loved Andrew Garfield in this.
Yeah,
and I love Tom Holland is my favorite Spider-Man.
I love the moment too where Andrew Garfield's like, "Guys, I suck," and Tobey goes, "No, you're amazing. You're amazing. You need to understand." Thanks. I just really need to hear it. The meta-ness of those three. The meta-ness of those three was great.
And I will say they were in the movie a ton more than I expected.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought they'd show up for the final battle and that'd be it. But they were in like the last, maybe not half of the movie, but they were in a ton more of it. There's a lot more. Instead of just being like a meeting scene and an action scene, there was just a ton of interaction throughout the whole. When they're all working together in like a lab, basically their makeshift lab. And I really loved the whole thing.
Yeah, there's everything they said. Like there was like the part where they couldn't fight together. Like we're not used to fight. Well, I am a part of the team. I'm a part of the Avengers. Cool. Who are you in a band? Everything about that worked so fucking well, and I'm so happy because that was the main thing you were worried about was how this was going to work, forcing them in, and so and it worked. Just as good as Spider-Verse with all the Spider-Men there. It worked so beautifully. And I love that Tobey was kind of like the senior vet. He kind of felt like the older, like the uncle to them because he's just the older guy. He's just like the part where he gets stabbed. I thought they were going to kill Tobey.
I thought he was dead.
I thought he was dead too. And I was
and to be honest with you, I'm like, how is he not? Because I mean, yeah, he's like, oh yeah, I've been stabbed before, but it was implied that straight through the back, all the way through him.
But then you see his stomach, and he didn't have any stab wounds.
That's what I'm saying. It's like it feels like the moment was played like, oh, he's gonna die, but then later on, it was like, oh no, I've been stabbed before.
I'm fine. I love the part where like they're like, hey, I love you guys. I'm gonna see you later, and he's like, you're in a lot of pain, aren't you? I'm so much pain. Like I would have loved the very first.
I would credit them or credit John Watts or whoever else wrote it with him, but it's just I thought that all three Spider-Men were done so well.
I also love that by the end of the film, by the end of that battle, the Cap shield, the Statue of Liberty just looked like regular Statue of Liberty. That they basically knocked that shield.
Yeah, see, I like the Cap shield on the Statue of Liberty.
No, I like it too, but I'm saying by the end of that fight, the crux was that the Statue of Liberty was still just a Statue of Liberty. I'm not saying that they weren't going to fix it. And I also love that did you catch that they had the Rogers musical in this?
I didn't notice that.
Because it was Christmas time. Because there was Christmas music at one point. So this is clearly coinciding with what's going on with Hawkeye. But there was
they even said early on you even knew that because he was telling MJ, he said, I just want to check out on those Halloween decorations like a month ago. So
yeah, but there was also like at the very, very beginning of the film when he grabs MJ and runs after the Mysterio thing, when they're swinging through, you can see Rogers the musical. His show. I was like, I saw that. I saw that yellow, but yeah, it's this film. I'm trying to think if there's anything.
That would imply that maybe this takes place the same time as Hawkeye. So who knows? Episode 6 coming up next week.
Like I said, we saw Kingpin, we saw Daredevil now.
You never know. Maybe it's the Spider-Man show.
Yeah, but that would be way too big. That'd be too much. There's way too much that they have to conclude in the final episode for that to throw Spider-Man shit.
Don't get me started on that, but okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I loved Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's comeback for this. I loved how the finale came through, like how they all had to work together. They all came up with antidotes for everybody, fixing everybody, and then each villain had a moment with their respective Spider-Man, and it wasn't like I hate you. I'll say it was out of mutual respect, because like I said, they all for the most part had this connected situation with their Spider-Man, and I love that they all had that. We already talked about Doctor Strange's, fixing everything. Did you notice Rhino? I saw fucking Rhino in the sky, and it was old school Rhino. It was like,
when they were showing the cracks in the sky.
Yes, like I saw Rhino. It wasn't
make out silhouettes, and I knew, and there were shapes. I couldn't figure out if they were supposed to be certain people or not. So I need to watch for that. I'm sure somebody somewhere will have it framed and broken down. But.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was like comic book Rhino at one point.
But Rhino, I was going to say Rhino doesn't know who Peter Parker is, but then again, maybe one.
At that point, I don't think it mattered. At that point, I think it was like, the Spider-Man versus, like, it could have been like the cartoon Spider-Man. And
it was only supposed to be people that knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man, but it could be Rhino in another universe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, and so of course we already talked about the ending with Peter, Tom Holland, and all that stuff. I mean, Tom Holland, like I said, this was his best performance, hands down. Everything culminated to this moment. This was like you said, this was the end game of Spider-Man. Every Spider-Man film except for Spider-Verse came together here, and it was done masterfully by Feige and John Watts. Tom Holland put on a phenomenal performance with everything that he had to carry in this film. Tom Holland did an amazing job. And I want to get this out of the way. The mid-credit scene with Venom.
Well, we'll start with the mid-credits. I'll say real quick. You kind of knew it was coming if you saw Venom, Let There Be Carnage. You knew it might tie in.
Can I say that I applauded the end of that video or the end of that scene, because you know what it meant? Tell me you know what it meant.
It meant that Venom, the parasite, is still there.
And get the fuck out of here, Tom Hardy. Venom. Get the fuck out of here. You're not a part of this MCU.
Well, here's the problem is that these are going to be still Sony movies, and because of the financial success of Venom, I can't see them saying, Tom Hardy, goodbye, we're just going to do Venom by itself. Venom's going
to still keep going on, and they're going to still keep doing Venom movies, but it's not going to be connected to Tom Holland. But
here's my problem is, why was Venom pulled in at all?
So Venom could be in that world.
No, but Venom or Tom Hardy, neither one knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man. So when this thing happened, why were they pulled into this world?
No, they did, because at the end of Carnage, that was the news report.
At the end of Carnage, because of the multiverse thing.
Yeah, they'd already gotten sucked in at that point.
It was because of the multiverse thing that they saw that report.
Yeah, that is very true.
But it's like, so there's no explanation that I know of. I mean, I'm sure maybe I'll search the internet and find somebody who has a reasonable explanation. I have not yet. But there's no reason Venom would have been pulled.
Yeah, they didn't know Peter Parker was Spider-Man, so why did they get pulled through?
Yeah.
Because they didn't know who Spider-Man was until they got pulled through.
Right. That's why I feel that might be the one goof in the movie, which clearly it's just so the movie can happen. But I'm not gonna hate it because of it, but it just doesn't make sense.
But nonetheless, when I saw him, I was like, "Fuck, here we go." Which anyone who's a Ted Lasso fan, that was Rojas, the bartender. Football is life, Rojas. And someone in the crowd knew that, and as soon as they say football is life, and everyone who knew Ted Lasso.
Ooh, I would have hated to be in your crowd. Yikes.
What's that?
Crowd yelling a lot of stuff. I would have hated to be in
this crowd. This was a hot crowd.
No, I'll talk about that briefly. Well, let's finish talking about that.
Yeah, but
do you have anything more to say about the mid-credit scene?
Like I said, when I saw Tom Hardy, I was like, fuck, okay, you knew you had to happen. But then as soon as he got pulled, like vanished back in, I saw the look. I'm like, thank you. We're gonna get another Venom. We are gonna get another Venom that's not Tom Hardy's Venom, and it's not Tom Hardy. It's those films. They're not good. They're really shit films.
Because this, in theory, will be the Venom that takes over and will end up with the spider logo on his chest.
And eventually, I think that'll probably be maybe where, if not the next movie, but maybe the second film, that thing is either going to attach to Flash. God, I hope not, because I do not want to see Tony Revolori as
Venom. Tony Revolori, as long as you brought him up,
completely wasted.
He was never on set with anyone else in this movie. Like he got phone calls from him.
Well, there was a part where he was in the donut shop, but he was on the other side.
It was a separate shop.
Yeah.
I feel like they brought him in for one day of filming, like when nobody else was around or something.
Yeah.
And he just like did a couple shots.
No. He was there with them on he was at least with Ned. I think it was with Ned, because when they were going into school, he was right there. Like, don't you? He's best friends. We're best friends with Peter Parker. Also, here's my book. So he was at least with Ned.
Okay, so at least that. But it felt like he was sitting there just to be like, oh look, Flash is still here. You know?
Yeah, which
I'm fine with him not using him much. He was a fine side character, but he wouldn't be going to serve a purpose in this movie. Yeah,
Flash is pointless in this franchise. But God, I hope Venom doesn't find Flash. I hope they create an Eddie Brock in this world and do that, or it grabs onto Peter or Tom Holland. We go from there. But yeah, that's I'm so
it. If they had pulled in, this is what they should have done. Although because people hate Spider-Man 3, maybe they should have pulled in Topher Grace, because he did know Peter was at, and then he could have left Venom there. But
that would have made more sense. But because it's
because Venom right now is a character, right now, they gotta tie in the new ones.
Yeah, because technically Venom is more connected to the Spider-Verse than it is, Tom Holland Spider-Man. But nonetheless, I gave my score. I gave it a 96. I was teetering between 96 and 97, but I gave it a 96. I know you gave it 5 stars, so that's at least a 95.
Yeah, well, I don't really have numerical scores for mine. This is basically 5 stars for me. Is basically a perfect movie. A 4.5. When I go down to 4.5, it's basically a movie that's like close to perfect, but there's a couple things that hold it back. This one, although I don't know if I call it 100% perfect, but the only problems I have with it are the tiniest of nitpicks, and so it's like I have to give it 5 stars. It did everything it tried to do. It was fun, but it was adventurous, but it was also emotional. I didn't have a problem with the way it looked, the way it was made, the way it was acted. The script I had no problem with. It is what it is.
And I'm so happy you liked it, because there was 2 things that I know that there was before the movie and there was after the movie with Brian. I'm literally sitting in the theater. I am waiting for this fucking movie to start. Brian texts me, dude, X-Men. I'm like,
holy shit, X-Men? Like question mark, exclamation point.
And I literally went like,
let me just say first, I knew he wasn't seeing it yet, because he had posted on Facebook, I'm going to a 6:00 show or something.
But see, that's the thing, is like, part of me was like, Brian knows I haven't watched this yet. I was like, is he fucking with me?
Or you're like, are you fucking with me? Because my movie's not started yet. And I just replied, oh fuck.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, he knows. But I was like, does he know though?
I let him linger with it for about 2 minutes.
Did he just screw me? I was like,
I only linger with about 2 minutes before I finally was, let him know.
I was like, I'm gonna get so fucking mad if he just did that. And then he's like, oh yeah, we go. Oh, then you don't want to know about Galactus.
I mentioned Galactus and Howard the Duck.
And I was like, okay, he's fucking with me. I was like, but there was a split second that I was like, oh, Brian, I'm going to get very angry at you. And then as I was waiting for the final credits to roll, or the trailer, basically, of Doctor Strange.
Which, I don't know about you, but I kind of assumed that was it, because that had leaked online. And since the trailer wasn't before the movie, I'm like, I bet the trailer's at the end.
Yeah, and so I recently went to Letterboxd and I saw Brian give it 5 stars. I was like, yes, I'm so happy. Still people fucking left. People still left. This is we're mid-20s, almost 30 movies in the MCU, and people are still fucking leaving.
Well, and I understand, like, casual moviegoers maybe don't care about post-credit scenes, so they're going to leave. But the people who are at this movie for opening night, not even opening night, opening afternoon of a movie like this, it's like the hardcore crowd. Now, let me just say real quick on that, as far as the crowd's concerned, I saw this with, like I think you mentioned in your non-spoiler review, this is the first time I've been in a sold-out theater, or even close to sold out, since like Avengers. Yeah. And my theater was completely sold out. The shows after me were completely sold out. But one of the things I've always hated about going to the movies, people talking, people whipping out their phones, all this kind of thing. Not a single one. I never saw one phone. I never heard one phone. Never saw anything light up. Never heard anybody. And nobody was talking like, conversations. Once in a while, you'd hear somebody get excited, "Ooh, excited about something." Yeah. But it was such a respectful crowd, because everyone was actually there, not just like some teenagers killing some time on a Friday night. Everybody's there because they wanted to see this movie. And so I love the crowd I was with. They were into it. They cheered at all the right moments. They, you could tell people were emotional at all the right moments. And, but they, were respectful and didn't talk, and it was perfect.
Yeah, that was what was like with our crowd was rowdy, especially right before the movie started. As soon as the lights dimmed and you saw it, you started to hear Mysterio, everyone was like, shut the fuck up. It got quiet. And then when Daredevil showed up, the crowd cheered. When Garfield and Toby showed up, everyone lost their minds. When Doc Ock, like when that ball bounced on the highway, everyone lost their minds. Through the film, you're right. I didn't see anyone on their cell phones. There was a little kid in the audience. And there was one point where he started to talk through the movie, and you heard like from 10 people. Like, oh shit, I don't have to say anything, kind of thing. But
no, yeah. I'm obviously going to see this movie at least 1, if not 6 more times in the theaters. I don't know, but and I'm sure on these subsequent
movies, worse.
You're going to have crowds with people that are on their phones or talking or whatever. And I know I'm not. That's why I had to like appreciate this opening night experience.
Yeah, because this was
opening nights movies like this. Not, A, to avoid spoilers. Mm-hmm. Yes. B, because I want to see it just as soon as I can. But also because you get the right crowd, which is what the movie going experience is all about.
People, even before I saw this, people were already posting shots from inside the theater on YouTube. It was on the front page of YouTube. Like, I'm going on YouTube to like look at something else, and for like front page, it's like Doctor Strange, trailer. I'm like, dudes, like, come on, bro, you're an asshole.
Well, I'm lucky I avoided because I've been being very careful about where I do.
I was being very careful too. I wasn't going on Facebook.
Right, but some people are telling me that if you went on they go on YouTube, just looking at like those things to subscribe to, but how it always has like these suggested videos for you.
Yeah,
and there were like whole scenes in the movie. Like, this is the movie where where Tobey Maguire shows up.
I go on there now, and
luckily I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, I go on there now, and it's at least 5 on the front page. Crowd reaction to Andrew Garfield, crowd reaction to Tobey Maguire, crowd reaction to Daredevil, crowd reaction to Tom Hardy. It was like, you can't avoid it. That's why you had to see it so quickly.
I managed to avoid all that.
But no, this was the first sold out theater that I've been in since Endgame. Because like every theater they've been doing like skipping a row of people, and then you have to 2 seats, empty space, 2 seats. This one, my theater didn't give a fuck. They're like,
oh no, it was full.
We're selling every fucking seat. And even when I showed up, I could already tell that the movie's showings after me were sold out.
I can't tell you how long it's been since I came out of a movie and had a cordoned off line waiting to come into the next screening. Because nowadays, I don't know about your theater, mine are all reserved seating now.
Yeah, mine.
So it's like, so nobody ever really shows up early. They're like, I can show up, at least not really early. But by the time my movie let out, there was probably still at least a half hour before the next showing, and there's like 30 people waiting to come in.
Yeah, because they had added like at least 3 more showings at my theater for Thursday night. And then I remember because I was telling my dad, because he went with me, I was like, hey, we need to go now. He's like, I thought we had reserved seats. I go, I don't trust those motherfuckers for not taking my seat. It's like, this is Spider-Man. Like, this is the most anticipated film of the year.
I live for the day. I live for the day that I walk in and somebody sit in my seat, because I can just be like, get the fuck out of my seat. And if they don't, I'll get a manager kick him out.
Oh, I've had that happen already at my theater. I was like, no. Like, well, we can share. No, we're not fucking sharing.
Like, this is not your seat.
Yes, get out of my seat. But no, this was the first time I felt that energy again, and it felt so good to have that energy. But then like when everyone's trying to leave and stuff like that, people were getting up. Like, there was literally at the worst possible time in this movie was when MJ and Ned are talking in his house. Everyone decided to go up and go to the bathroom. Like, they're like, oh, this is the moment to go get them. And it's like, this was the worst time. Because this is when Garfield and Toby showed up. I was like, there was at least 15 people in my theater who got up to go to the bathroom at that.
I missed that.
And I was like, okay, it's a little quiet moment. Then I'm watching like, oh, y'all fucked up. Like, you went at the worst moment, because they're coming back in and Andrew Garfield's hanging from the wall. Not even going, what the hell happened? Kind of thing. And I was like, that's why you don't go to the bathroom during a movie. You hold it, or you go
before and you go after.
Yeah. Like control. But I'm so glad I got to talk about this. I've been, like I say, it's been eating at me because I haven't had anyone to talk about. Because like I went to work today and everyone's like, "Oh, the Spider-Man movie." It's like, I want to say words. But
you can't really talk about it.
It's like, just go see it, and then we can talk about it. And it's like everyone's just like, "How was it? I know you went and saw it. How was it?" Like, well, go watch my shitty non-spoiler review, because it's just I don't want to say anything because I know I'm gonna say something I shouldn't say. Like, I know I'm going to. It's like, just go watch it and we'll talk about it. But I'm so happy we got to talk about this. If you guys enjoyed the spoiler review, hit that like button. Feel free to share it. Subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. I agree with Brian. This is the #1 movie of the year right now, hands down. I'm so happy. I'm so happy this movie did exactly what we were hoping for it to do. I'm so happy everything worked. I cannot wait to watch this again and again and again.
I literally I had bought tickets to the 3 o'clock show and the 6:30 show, and I was like, I might go watch this movie twice in a row. And the only reason
I did that for Spider-Man 2. When Spider-Man 2 came out, I watched it back. I worked at the theater at the time, but I worked the whole day, and then I went and saw the last showing, or no, it wasn't. And then we added another show because it was so. And I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna stay and rewatch this again. And I would have done that had I not had to come home and work at 6 a.m.
Well, I was the same way. It's like I had bought tickets to both shows, but the only reason I didn't is because they needed because of weather the night before. They want us to come in early to work the next night, and I could have said no, but I'm like, it's money, so I'm like, you know what, fine, I'll go to work. I'll come back and see it later this weekend. So, but yeah, I would have gone back to see it.
Yeah, I'm so happy that this movie worked, because this could have been, granted, it wouldn't have been as bad as like Captain Marvel, Thor, Dark World, crap like that. But because it's Spider-Man, 75% of the time, Spider-Man works every time. You know, but I could have said 67%. I'm not going to quote Anchorman on that. But I knew it was good. I was going to enjoy it. But I was hoping, I was like, I'm not going to have like a bunch of all these like nitpicks and stuff and stuff like that. And I didn't. And I'm glad that you liked it. I'm glad that when we probably do our end of the year, we're just going to go, well, this is going to be the last movie we talk about kind of thing. But yeah, I can't wait to watch it again. Obviously, you're gonna probably watch it way more than me before I get to watch it again, because I have to try to watch all this other crap that's come out. Because my next day off's not till Wednesday, and of course that's when Matrix comes out and all that stuff. So I'm not gonna probably get to watch Spider-Man again for at least a little while. But yeah, we hope you guys have checked out the film. If you haven't, why are you watching this? Because we just spoiled the whole fucking film for you. But if you guys did watch it, let us know what you felt in the comments below. You know, reach us out on the social media. Did you guys like this film? Did you guys like it as much as we did? What did you like? What didn't you like? What are you excited for coming down the road now for the new Spider-Man films? Let us know. We will be back next week again for the Weekend Crusaders. It's our final episode of the year, where we'll talk about 5 movies that come out during that weekend in movie history. And then, of course, we'll have our end of year Weekend Crusaders episode as well. We have a lot of movies coming out here between now and the next week. I'm going to try to watch as many as I can and do kind of a big review drop for everything. Like the next biggest one is obviously Matrix Resurrections. So be on the lookout for that review as well. But guys, Marvel pulled it off. Kevin Feige is a fucking masterpiece, or is a mastermind. I can't believe they did it. We're both so happy that he pulled it off. But we are the Movie Crusaders. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. My name's Sean Wasserkrug. That is Brian Michaels. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.